Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is Global Reality Radio Network.
Welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us tonight here for yet another late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. Thursday going into Friday now. And it is Thursday, June 16th, and now turning into Friday, June 17th, 2011. And thank you so much for being with us tonight. We will be getting into our usual news and information tonight pertaining to the world system and where it stands currently on this day of June in 2011 here for you tonight. So definitely strap in and get ready for another extended late night Moonbat edition here tonight. We're going to be getting into some news. As always, listener email as well. And we're also going to begin reading tonight from a new book, which I have personally chosen to read for you on air. And we just finished up last night with our reading of William Bramley's The Gods of Eden, and it was a fantastic few months there of reading that on air, and very enjoyable. I really enjoyed that more than any other book that I've ever read on air up to this point. I really did. I really think that was. I think that if you missed any of those shows, that you should go back and listen to all of them, which I know is a lot to ask, but I think there's a lot of good information in there. And I think that yeah, you can read it on your own and all that, and I could have read it on my own and I read it on air too, but you know, it's kind of a new experience. To me, it's kind of uncharted territory. It's like, wow, you know, because I see what I'm getting out of it from the experience of reading it to you and stuff, and you know, being able to voice those aha moments and those little things that I find, and then also, you know, the experience of you listening to it and listening to me read it, even though you may have read the book on your own already, and you know, just listening to what I voice and my perspective on it and the rest of it. So you know, that I think that's a kind of uncharted territory. You know, it hasn't really. I don't know that it's really been done that much. You know, I don't know there's ever been. It's kind of a new medium, if you ask me. You know, because you're creating something that wasn't there before. It's kind of this symbiotic thing where, you know, I'm reading the book, you're experiencing it, I'm experiencing it, together we're experiencing it, and it's creating something new, a new synergistic thing that's never happened. You know, I don't know if anybody else has ever read, you know, taken 2 or 3 months worth of airtime, or could have, you know, because when you're on commercial radio or something, there's no way you could ever do that. But since I have my own platform, you know, we can take 3 months out of and read a book on air and experience that. That's uncharted territory. That's pretty groundbreaking. That's awesome, and I want to do that more. And again, you know, I need to clarify this because I will be reading things that are oftentimes not stuff that I'm 100% endorse or agree with. You know, the same goes for Bramley and the Gods of Eden. You know, I don't 100% endorse that or anything like that. But I think there was some good information that warrants reading. There is some stuff in there also too that's going to be with anything. So our book that we're going to start reading tonight is going to be The Lost Book of Enki, as translated by Zachariah Sitchin. Now, I'm no fan of Sitchin. I made that clear on this show many, many times. But we're just going to see what's what. We're going to create that experience of reading it together and see what we come up with. Because we may come up with some, glaring omissions or things that are, glaring disinfo, and we can point those out, and then that makes the case against people who try to endorse Sitchin stuff that much stronger. Or we may actually come across some info and some tidbits and some things that, kind of like what we did when we were reading William Bramley, tidbits and little things that may kind of seal the deal further on our own knowledge and what we believe and at this moment. So it should be another very interesting read. I'd love to have emails from you as well tonight. I have a couple here that I want to read. And I'd love to have those from you. globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's Google Mail, Gmail, Gmail. I want to make that clear because we have listeners in like 35 countries now. Insane. I was looking at the statistics the other day. There's little crazy places I can't believe. We literally have listeners now, folks, in every corner of the globe. Man, if that, if the support that we got in here could ever catch up with that, we would never have to worry about anything, and we could take these guys on head on. Because everything here's how it works now. It's a crazy thing. We found this out, and I've learned this more, even though I've been in bands and I've been a musician for half my life, playing on stage and stuff half my life. The music industry and all industries of everything, this is the New World Order. All this stuff has changed. And one of the things that's kind of been kind of a culture shock thing for me over the last year or so playing in the band The Demigods has been just, wow, everything in the industry is pay to play now. Like if you want to play a certain festival or you want to get here, you have to pay a promoter, $10,000, and then they'll get you on a festival in front of so many thousand people or something like that. Or, so and so can get your song on every radio station nationwide, but he needs $5,000 up front. That's how it works now. And if you've got cash and you've got money, you can take, no, it doesn't matter. It's not about talent. It's not about how good you are. It's about honing your craft. It's strictly about cash. That's all it's about. The whole music industry is like that now. So how far you go and how far you get and how many people you reach is dependent solely on how much money you have to spend to do that. And that's what I'm finding more and more. Because every time I come out with a movie and I work on a new project, I level up. When I came out with 9/11 New World Rising in 2007, I was a rookie. I was a noob. It was the first film I'd ever made, and it shows. But then when you see 2 years later, what you see what I did with Seawright Volume 1, while still not, while still very lo-fi, it was still a bump up and a notch up, and you could see where I had leveled up, and my filmmaking got better, my narration had gotten better, music ability to score had gotten better. We had much better licensed clips from News Archives, so everything there was just bumped up, And that's how Secret Right Volume 2 is going to be as well. It's still not, it's still not going to look like, a slick Alex Jones film that's had $500,000 put into it, but it's going to be still a notch up from what we've done before. And, so that's the whole thing that I'm finding now more and more is that all the industries are like this. I found out it's that way. Well, because now that I'm, a filmmaker, I've been a filmmaker now for 4 years. I've had people, try to get me to get my stuff in film fest and like Dallas Film Fest and different stuff like that. And that's another one of the things that I've found out from kind of, doing some research and looking into, how do I get the Secret Right Volume 2 in a film festival, that kind of thing. Talking to people who have done it, people who know how to do it. And it's funny, it's the same thing there. It's like, if you got $5,000, you can go grease the skids of whoever and, go grease the skids of the people who sit on the board for the Dallas Film Festival. And that's all you got to do. And you can get your film shown and, you'll probably get it picked up and distributed or something. So that's, like I said, with it's just insane to look around and see. We have listeners all over the world now, and I'm so glad that when I started the show, I decided to make this the global reality, not the American reality, because it's, you know, a lot of these shows and a lot of these people who claim to be researchers and truth sayers and all this stuff, they try to make it seem like this is just, you know, oh, we got to save America, blah, you know, America's being destroyed, but the whole planet's being destroyed. Why is it that we're supposed to focus so much more on ourselves than everybody else in the goddamn world who's having their country destroyed too? You know, I could never get on board with that. I could never wrap my mind around that. So when I started my show in September 2007, that's why I called it The Global Reality. Because I felt like that my mission needed to be to tell the world, not just, you know, people in my backyard in the United States of America here, my perspective of what's going on and my research into what's going on, but the whole world needed to know that. So that's amazing, man, to see that we're reaching so many people in so many countries now. But again, you know, if our support equaled that, we'd be doing all right. Because again, that's the only thing that you have that I find more and more the lack of cash hinders me and keeps me down here at, you know, permanently at rookie level. It's not because I finally figured that out. It's not because I'm not working my butt off for it. It's not because I'm not doing good work. It's not because I'm not putting out good info. But it's because if you don't have a back stock of cash, that's why we ask for support and donations all the time and have shipping banners, is because, and you know, it's very hard to describe all those things to people. You know, people just see they just wonder where the money's going or whatever. You know, they don't see the little things that are there where, you know, everything, with a lack of cash, you permanently are being held down in a minor league level. You see, you're permanently there, and no matter how hard you work or how you know, how much research you do or how many hours you put into making a film, because you're held back by those evil Federal Reserve notes, those evil Templar notes, those evil money changer notes, worthless pieces of crap. But the people who control the illusion control your ability to be able to do things on a minor league level or a major league level. So in order to be able to take these people on in an effective way, we have to play their system and use their system and shove it right back up their motherfucking asses. That's, to me, that is what the only need and the only thing that any of us, myself, you, anybody, need these worthless Templar notes for anymore. We need to turn these things into weapons right now. And I don't mean go out and buy weapons and guns with the money. I mean, we need to turn their worthless money into weapons against them by using them to do things like put out films on these topics like the Secret Right and the CMP and the Jesuits and, you know, the Rockwall stuff that I want to do next and all that. You know, that's how we turned their evil illusionary money into a weapon that is used right back against them. And, you know, I've struggled with this through you know, I for the longest time, I was beating myself up so bad because, you know, I was working myself into an early grave, you know, like constantly, blah, 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 just going fucking balls and walls, go, you know, all the time, you know, research, and then you realize, well, and then when it doesn't go, it doesn't get any, it's not any, you know, doesn't go any farther than it did the last time. You just kind of go, well, what am I doing wrong? You know, and then, you know, the info's tight, this, that, and the other. And then you find out what it is. It's just because that evil illusionary money and a lack of it doesn't allow you to play at the level that you need to play at to reach the effective amount of people. And that's, you know, the thing about that for me is that doesn't, even though that is a problem for me, it's just like not knowing, it's just like when you don't know about the New World Order and you don't know about global government, and you don't know about all this stuff, And, you know, you're going through life, and you can't just for the life of you cannot for the life of you figure out why things always happen to you. It's just a constant struggle. You just, you know, you go from job to job, or girlfriend to girlfriend, or boyfriend to boyfriend. You can't, you know, and just life sucks and blah, 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 and you don't have money. And you wonder, you know, when you don't know about the global master plan, you just can't, you know, you get depressed and you feel down because you can't figure out how to see a way out of it. But once you find out about it, and then you can identify the source of all your misery, you know, you're so much happier. Because then at least you know where you stand. Then at least you know, okay, well, the cause of all this can be pinned down to this and these guys. So if I get up off my ass and do something about that, I may have a chance to change it. So that's the way I feel about this. Now that I've identified the fact that why I haven't been able to take my work to a higher level is based strictly on nothing else other than the fact that we just don't have enough cash and enough backing, financial backing, to play at the level we need to play at. Now that I know that's the problem, you may say, oh, well, you know, well, you're fucked if that's the case. But I don't see it as that. I don't think I'm fucked. I see it as problem has been identified. I can take the weight off of my shoulders of now, thinking that I'm not doing enough or anything else, and just keep kicking ass and going. And see, now I'm re-enthused. Now I want to make, you know, I'm going to get this fucking film out real soon, man, now, because I'm fired up again, you know? I'm enthusiastic again because I was just, and I guess all the stuff going on with my family and stuff, you know, over the past month, that probably compounded it and probably had me just not thinking straight, you know, because I was really getting down on myself thinking that I was just, you know, I was a piece of shit, and I just unenthused about even working on the film or doing any of that stuff. It just seemed like, you know, what's the use, blah, 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 you know, what does it matter? Nobody's going to listen anyway. You know, the usual fucking shit. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. You're a liar if you say you haven't done that at some point in your life. You have. We all do. That's what makes us human. You know, but it's just amazing because now that I've identified that, and now I know what it is, it's not a weapon against me anymore. You know what I mean? It was a weapon against me for the longest time because I was like, what's the problem? You know, what's going on here? How come I can't get this to the level I know it needs to be at? You know, that's the whole thing is that, man, it just, once you identify it, you know, again, it's not being used against you, and then you are empowered to take it on. You're empowered to go, okay, well, now that I figured out what it is, then all that is to do is just, you know, find a way to fix that problem. I think that's, you know, is a real lesson for me. And I'm grateful to everybody out there in the listening audience that supports our work, and everybody out there that listens every night and posts YouTube videos and sends me great emails telling me how much they like the show and what we're doing. Man, I love you guys so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. It's amazing stuff. Really amazing. And you know, again, now that I've identified what that issue is, you know, I think that you're definitely gonna see a change in me and the stuff that I'm doing and stuff that I'm putting out and what I'm working on, the level of things that I'm doing. Because again, you know, I know that now that I've identified that and I know what was the issue, that's going to resonate in all of you out there. Because that might help you come to that same sort of realization, maybe in an unrelated issue or a similar issue in your life. You know, where you finally realize, damn, man, you know, I didn't know what it was all this time. I thought it was me. I thought I was fucking up, blah, blah, blah. It was just that one thing, you know, and that's what it was, and I couldn't see it. And that's what was holding me back. And then again, you've conquered it. At that point, you have conquered it because you've identified it, and it can no longer be used as a hindrance. That's an amazing thing. So now I just feel now that I've identified that, you know, other people out there, and I think that, you know, things will get better. I think that we, you know, the tide always turns. it's not dark all the time. Eventually the sun comes up and it's light again. Well, I think that's what's going to happen. I think eventually the tide is going to turn. People are going to realize what I'm trying to do, what my mission is. And it is a mission for me. That's what all of this is. It's a mission. It's a journey. This is just a reflection of my life. This show really is, a small reflection. It's not the whole picture at all, but it's a reflection of it, So I just, I have to share those kind of things with you, as the audience, when they come to me, because I think that's why you listen. I think that's what you want. I think that's, you tune in for that, because that's, to me, when that's how we discover things about ourselves and work through things that we have and problems we have our own self is seeing others tackle those problems and figure them out, and then we can be inspired to then also take that and figure other things out for ourselves. That's, I feel that my ability to be able to come on the show here and share that kind of stuff with you, is why you're here. You wouldn't be here if you were getting something out of it. That's why, I don't understand people that listen to my show and they don't like me, because, they may not like me, but they're getting something out of it. They may not admit it to themselves, but subconsciously they wouldn't be listening if they were getting something out of it. So they're getting something out of what I do, regardless of whether or not they'll admit that to me, themselves, or anybody else. Because if not, why waste your time? Time is short. For God's sakes, don't waste your time listening to the sound of my voice, unless you're getting something from it. That would be fruitless. That would be pointless. There'd be nothing to that, So if you're one of those haters or one of those people out there that doesn't like me and you just listen because you want to see what I'm going to say, man, seriously, get a life. Go out and get some air. Get out from in front of your goddamn computer for a minute and go outside and see the world. But if you are getting something out of it, then welcome, and let's get into it tonight. GlobalRealityShow@gmail.com is my email address. I want to see if I've got a couple of emails here. So this is from Roy. I think we had one from Roy the other night. I think he's calling himself Metal Roy. So
fucking Metal Roy, yeah, motherfucker. From the Dark Lord to you, Metal Roy. Yes.
Well, there you go. You even got Satan excited tonight there, Metal Roy. Hello, Josh. I know you've been a busy man, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. First off, I got to give you my official condolences on your dad's passing. You may recall from the email sent before, I lost my dad in November 2010 to a very fast-moving brain tumor that seemed to come out of nowhere. And no matter what the circumstances are, it's not easy. I hope he is at peace and that you are finding peace. It takes time. I'm still in my own grieving process for my dad. And incidentally, my grandpa died a couple of weeks later. His burial is tomorrow. A huge thank you for continuing to do the show. I've been listening for a couple of months, and so I hate it that I can't afford to donate, but I apologize. But I struggle to pay my basic bills. And of course, I hate how the system is set up and where it takes so much money just to fucking exist. Yeah, exactly. That's another one reason why I guess one of the many reasons why we're all here, right? Because if we keep pushing at it and we keep going and we don't stop and we don't quit, we may just find ourselves another way to exist just yet. But if we say we never will, then we never will. But I think we're going to before it's over. I think we're going to find us another way to exist, and we're going to find a way to exist without these motherfuckers. That's what we're going to do. But right now, we got to use their shitty system and shove it up their ass before we can do that. I do want to donate, chip in as soon as I possibly can. I need to dig more out of the fucking hole I'm in first, getting closer. I've been selling a lot of things that I don't need. I'm actually just about ready to put my house up for sale. So, yeah, life will be changing big time for me when I sell the house. And shit, man, I don't even have anything lined up. I may be living out of the back of an old truck somewhere. Who knows? Well, you know what, dude? Who cares? And if you did, you'd probably be happier than you ever have been your whole life. Who knows? But the whole thing about it is, what it sounds like to me is going on here, Roy, is that I'm blown away by this. I'm blown away by you. I'm blown away by what you're telling me here. because of what you're telling me here in this email is true, Roy. You've done it, man. You have finally figured out that you can detach and you can let go of all those things they tell you have to be attached to for this illusion of security. And you've chosen to just go, off grid and see where the wind takes you. I've been doing that my whole life, man. It's the truth. I've been there. That's all I've ever done. That's what I continue to do. And it's not easy, but you know what? Once you do that, they can't hold you down anymore. You're not parked in one place making a mortgage payment to a bank, in their criminal system anymore. You're out, you're free, you're away from that. Just to clarify, I certainly don't get any luxuries or anything extra. I live very frugally. Just want you to know I look forward to supporting your work as soon as I can. Great job reporting on the nuclear power plant situation near Omaha. I was curious what sort of official statement the place who owns that plant may have about the issue, if any. I haven't seen any official thing. I mean, they said they had a flood, but that was it. And a flood, if you've seen the video, is goddamn the entire river all the way up to the top of the roof of this thing. Their guys were driving in boats over it. The fucking parking lot was, 20 feet down or something. That's absolutely insane. And he says that I did some poking around to find their website, and of course on the homepage there was no obvious news flash about what's going on, or even a regular link to news. Well, again, my friend Tracy has family up there, and she got family that lives 10 miles from the place, and they're telling them shit up there, and they're not letting them leave. They're keeping them trapped up there and not telling them that there's anything even wrong or going on with the power plant. I mean, it's seriously. I don't know if anybody else out there, the mainstream media, well, the mainstream media has not reported it at all anyway, but I don't know if anybody else out there knows that, but it's a fact. In the facts, they do admit a fire knocked out the cooling process for the spent fuel rods. Yet regarding the possibility of the cooling pool in danger of boiling, which it obviously would if the cooling process wasn't operational, they claim there was no such imminent danger with the Fort Calhoun Station spent fuel pool. Yeah, a fucking politician must write the stuff for their rumor control page, and of course, we don't know what things they're telling blatant lies about. Yeah, exactly. All 4 reactors at Fukushima went meltdown the day of the tsunami. The day of, not a month later, a week later, 2 months later. They all went meltdown the day of. They finally admitted that 2 weeks ago. So you think they wouldn't? I mean, folks, if people were to find out about this, it'd be pandemonium. It'd be panic. This is a massive cover-up. We've seen every indicator this is a massive cover-up. And, I'm going to keep talking about it as long as there's info to put out. Again, if anybody gets anything new, always email it over to me. If you find some new info on this or anything, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. What they are telling us about are blatant lies about based on what you found out about Fukushima. They finally admitted to, I suppose the truth won't come out until later. Well, you can type that in. I mean, that wasn't, I didn't just pull that out of nowhere. That was on AP, and it was on all of them that they admitted a couple weeks ago that it all went meltdown the day that it happened. That's an absolute fact. I mean, that's mainstream news admitted fact now. It's not, Tinfoil Times or the Conspiracy Herald or something. It was openly admitted to. It was on television and everything. So yeah, of course they're covering something up. Suppose the truth won't come out until later after disaster's been happening for a while. Well, I better wrap up this email. I just thought you may want to be aware of that. Keep on keeping on, Josh, and thanks again for all you do. Listening to your show has really changed my life for the better. A supporter in Minnesota.
Battle Roy, yes.
All right, Battle Roy. P.S. I'm trying to spread the word, too, although most people around where I live are asleep. Absolutely not ready to hear about what's going on. I know I can't get through to everyone, but I'll keep on trying. All right. Well, great email, Roy. Thanks so much for that, my friend. And you keep on keeping on, too. Sounds like you're on the right track, and don't let anybody tell you any different. Hear me? Josh, this comes from VSTOF, or I guess VS Topher. Josh, what is your take on the symbols like the cross, swastika, black sun wheel, etc., being symbols of alignment around the North Star? Could it be the Stargate the elite have always used for opening a new dimension, or a window like Rod Serling spoke of, used to distance themselves from our physical plane? Thoughts on these powerful symbols? Okay to read on air, Bill. All right, Bill. Well, what is my take? Let me go one by one here. What is my take on the symbols like the cross, swastika, black sun wheel, etc., being symbols of alignment around the North Star? Well, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the North Star Polaris? Isn't that what? Let me look that up. The Pole Star is what they call Polaris. Yeah. Commonly called the Northern Star, or, the North Star. So it's Polaris. Well, I'll tell you this. They have nuclear weapons that they launch from missiles that are called Polaris nuclear missiles. Now, the Bhagavad Gita talks about the earth being reduced to ashes by basically a war between gods, and it literally talks about these describes nuclear weapons being wiping out everything on the earth, and they actually, there's actually evidence of that. It happened prior to the Great Flood on Earth, and they're actually, when you dig down deep enough underground, 20 feet down or whatever, down to the bedrock, you find a layer of pre-flood ash down there, and it's across the entire surface of the earth. So that indeed did happen. So what I've always seen with those symbols, Bill, is that, that's what they symbolize. They symbolize the ancient gods, the many gods that came down and seeded Earth with religion and mythology and technology and all this stuff. And, definitely the time with nuclear power, nuclear energy, nuclear warfare, and, it being the Polaris nuclear missiles that we have, there's a definite connection there. Could it be that the Stargate, the elite, have always used for opening a new dimension? It very well could be that is where these Stargates have opened up and where they've gone back and forth from. Could very well be where, the Anunnaki or the gods of ancient Egypt, like Horus and Set and all, it could very well be a similar thing there. The Stargate opens up and it jumps between that planet and, that star and in our Earth. All of this stuff is it's all up for discussion because all of it's very relevant. And so, with those symbols, those are definitely sun symbols. One of the things that I've always pointed out to people is when they say, when they call something a sun symbol, right? Like Jordan Maxwell or something, or they say, it was worship of the sun. Yes, but whose sun? So they don't clarify that. They don't give you all the info on that. They'll tell you when you see Egyptian stuff, that's a depiction of the sun. They're sun worshipers. That's a sun symbol. The swastika is a sun symbol. Yes, but technically all stars are suns. They're just not our sun. You see, nobody's factored that in. I believe that all of these quote unquote sun symbols, like you described here, the cross, the swastika, the black wheel, then as I mentioned, other symbols that are indicative of the sun that we see in Egyptian artifacts and things of that nature in hieroglyphs. Those I've always been a steadfast believer that they are not talking about our sun. It is not a worship of our sun. It is it is a representation of another star system, possibly Polaris, the North Star, and in some cases Sirius and the star system of Sirius, and in some cases also as well Cygnus. And this is a very good indicator as well that some of these different gods that seeded religions in different parts of the world came also from different parts of the galaxy. Some of them, maybe some of the ones that came down and seeded Buddhism came from, Cygnus, or maybe some of the ones that came down and seeded, people in Africa from, maybe that came from Polaris. My point is that very well could be why we don't just see, not everything's lined to Sirius. Not everything is lined up to Polaris. Not everything is lined up to Cygnus, but some things are. And they always seem to be things that are representative of ancient civilizations that had high technology, possibly contact with extraterrestrials. So that's something I think that everybody needs to take into their mind, think about, absorb, and then every time you see a sun symbol, a swastika or a cross or anything else, again, think of it as a sun, but not our sun in our solar system. Think of it as a star in someone else's solar system. I promise you, when you start thinking about it like that and looking at it like that, you'll start to see a whole lot of stuff in a very different way. So I hope that helps, Bill, and I appreciate your email. It's a great one. So yeah, there you go. We're going to take a break and come back. And when we come back, we will get into some news tonight. We're also going to be reading The Lost Book of Enki, our new series of reading that we're going to be starting tonight. So I hope you will stay with us. This is The Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio. All right, back here with you on the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us tonight here for another late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. In this segment of the broadcast, we're going to be getting into news. And as always, emails are welcome throughout the course of the show. I'll do my best to get into those. I check my email pretty regularly throughout the show. So let's see here. So I want to get into first tonight. Again, my website, if you're listening on rebroadcast, I think later, I didn't mention this earlier. My website, where this broadcast originates from, is www.theglobalreality.com. It's www.theglobalreality.com. And that's where you find my films, the links to listen to the stream, all the archives are all the past radio shows we've done, different clips that have been on YouTube as well. FML recording imprint, that's our imprint for our label that we created to put out our music. The Demigods, Jamie Reeves, Delphi, all those CDs are up there. You can buy copies of my DVDs as well. It supports our work. And the chipping banner and the donate button, again, we haven't been getting as much support as we need lately, so please help us out if you can. The chipping banner is there, and the donate button is there as well at the website. Let's see what we want to get into here first tonight. I found this interesting. It's one of those things, you always see. Of course, we know the importance of the number 33, but it's amazing. You really see the somebody in the. Someone had sent an email last week that we talked about on the show that asked about Terence McKenna and about the idea of novelty and all that. High novelty. We are entering that time of high novelty. We very much are in that time right now, and that's why you continue to see these things like 33 popping up and very odd, conspicuous places. So I saw this article, and it's kind of interesting in that fact alone. Because what I'm gathering from this would be the first time that we would ever have known this, and I guess we know this now. But according to this article here from the Daily Mail, and we'll read this article, according to this, we now have determined that it takes exactly 33 years for us to send a spacecraft from Earth to the edge of the solar system. Anybody else but me think that's kind of an interesting tidbit? I don't quite know what it means or what the implications of it are, but it does kind of seem an interesting thing, and it seems too big of a coincidence to be not be something to it. NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft could crash through the final frontier as it exits our solar system at any time and much earlier than previously thought, scientists have said. The unmanned probe has been hurtling towards the system's boundary known as the heliopause since 2004. It was initially thought that 2014 would see the craft exit our solar system and enter interstellar space, but surprised scientists now believe the crossover could happen anytime soon. There is one time we are going to cross that frontier, and this is the first sign that it is upon us. Now, you can only, do it once. Yeah, you pop your cherry. That's it. It will be the first time that man has ever broken through into, past the edge of the solar system and, take an odd way ahead of schedule, way sooner than they thought it would. It just happened to take 33 years. That's just odd. It says that Tom Kamigris, the principal investigator for Voyager's low-energy charged particle instrument and Cassini's magnetospheric imaging instrument, said in the journal Nature, he said new data from Voyager's low-energy charged particle instrument, which was recorded in December 2010, indicated the onward speed of the charged particles streaming from the sun and had slowed down to zero. The stagnation of the solar wind had continued through at least February 2011, making a thick, previously unprecedented transition zone at the edge of the solar system. As the average outward speed of the solar wind had slowed to zero, it meant that the spacecraft was nearing ever closer to the solar system's edge. Kamigris' team combined the new Voyager data with previously unpublished measurements from the ION and a neutral camera on Cassini's magnetospheric imaging instrument. The latter collects information on neutral atoms streaming into the solar system from the outside. The analysis indicated that the boundary between interstellar space and the bubble of charged particles the sun blows around itself was likely to be between 10 and 14 billion miles from the sun. As Voyager 1 was already nearly 11 billion miles out, it could cross into interstellar space at any time. So very odd that again, ahead of schedule, that we, for the first time ever, when we break out of our solar system into interstellar space, and it takes exactly how long? 33 years to do it. Unbelievable. So that meant that anyone traveling here from the edge of our solar system would have gotten here, theoretically, depending on what speed they were traveling, in 33 years as well. Very odd. Let's see what else we have. Last night we had that story about just confirming, what I've talked about here for about 4 years on the show, which is that chemtrails are actually being designed to, because I saw this post last night by Chris Everard. It was just such disinformation. It was on his Facebook page. Oh, my God. He claimed that chemtrails are being made to reflect the sun because we've burned out our atmosphere with fossil fuels. Now, number one, even using that term fossil fuels is a misnomer in and of itself. Anybody who's, educated on the elite master plan and the New World Order and all that stuff would know that, fossil fuels, give me a break. Come on now. But also just this idea that they're created, that we burned out our atmosphere, buying into so the global warming people were right, Yeah, we actually did do that with fossil. No, that's a lie. It's an absolute. There's been no evidence to ever prove that. So that's another piece of disinfo. And also that we're using it to reflect. No, they're making a greenhouse effect. He doesn't mention that they're spraying sulfur hexafluoride in the atmosphere, and they admit that they're doing that. The Department of Energy admits it. Alcoa put their biggest aluminum creation plant in the world. Just happens to be up there in Iceland. Or Greenland, one of those, very close, of course, to the poles, and they're wondering why the polar ice caps are melting. Well, if you weren't spewing the most toxic greenhouse gas known to man in there, that just is like acid to a polar ice cap, it wouldn't be happening. But anyway, we've talked about the sunspot cycles and all this stuff, and moving into a new ice age. We always see that with a movement of this planet Vulcan that people are trying to tell us is Nibiru. And, we covered that last night on the show and talked about it, and it didn't even take 24 hours after we covered it. Here comes the fucking damage control already. Because, that story, I didn't see anybody else really pushing that issue, and boy, here we go. Scientists see sunspot hibernation, but no ice age. And now they're coming back and playing damage control. Now they're saying, oh, no. Whoever said that's an asshole. Whoever said that doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. No, we're not moving into ice age. No, who told you that? No, not happening. Very, very, very interesting. Because as soon as somebody in a scientific comes out with something, as dead set as that, and then they come out the next day and try to play damage control in Reuters, boy, that's a clear sign that, that really is going on. Sunspot cycles, those 11-year patterns when dark dots appear on the solar surface, may be delayed or even go into hibernation for a while, U.S. scientists said on Wednesday. But contrary to some media reports, this does not mean a new ice age is coming. Frank Hill of the National Solar Observatory said in a telephone interview, we have not predicted a little ice age. We have predicted something is going on with the sun. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Boy, how many PhDs did you have to go get to figure that one out, bucko? My fucking cat could have told you that. The appearance of sunspots helps predict solar storms that can interfere with satellite communication, power grids, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. They're just trying to, play damage control because now the fucking genie's out of the bottle and people are starting to freak out. But I mean, people are going to continue to freak out because they continue pushing this stuff on everybody. And they keep making these movies about the apocalypse. And if it's not, this apocalypse that happens with the road, or it's going to be this apocalypse that happens with, aliens over here. It says Noah Weil stars in a drama about an alien invasion. This is from the Associated Press. On his new TNT sci-fi series, Falling Skies, he plays Tom Mason, a Boston University history professor whose wife was killed and one of his 3 sons taken captive in an alien attack. Tom is second in command of a ragtag regiment of survivors in a ravaged Boston suburb. The odds against them seem insurmountable, but they are fighting back. In his new role, Weil is facing even more challenges than years ago in that Chicago emergency room. On Falling Skies, there are threats aplenty from the mysterious multi-legged aliens nicknamed Skitters by the humans and the killing machine robots they sick on the Earthlings. So killing machine robots from extraterrestrials and, people making ragtag resistance against it. This is a common theme they keep putting in there, and you've got to you just can't help but think that again, this is prepping us for something. It's mental preparation. It's getting people ready for something. They've been pushing this a whole lot. Again, one of the things that people I need to be very clear on is that, because I always misquote that von Braun statement that Carol Rosen had made, his secretary, about, first it was going to be communists and then terrorists and then asteroids and then aliens and blah, blah, blah. And they were going to use it to stage an alien invasion. Well, that's not exactly what he said, but that's what people in the Truth Movement, Patriot Movement always say that he said. And that's actually not what he said if you go listen to Carol Rosen's statements on it. And I feel the need to be the champion of that and make sure that's corrected because people always misquote it. I hear it misquoted 10 times a day. Every time you turn on a radio and I've corrected people on it, they still go back and say that again. That's not what he said. He didn't say that we were going to stage an alien invasion. He said that extraterrestrials that were going to attempt to contact us or have contacted us, or extraterrestrials that we've been working with for years, or blah, 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 whatever, we were going to be told these extraterrestrials were hostile and that we had to create space-based weapons to eliminate these hostile aliens. But that it was going to be a lie that these aliens were hostile when, in fact, they were going to be here to help us. People always leave that out. And now I think after we've read William Bramley's The Gods of Eden and we've seen, wholeheartedly that the people in the Truth Movement and Patriot Movement that are connected to Jesuits are connected in the intelligentsia of keeping people, misdirecting people away from looking into the extraterrestrial issue and how it concerns religion. And all these people call themselves Christians and they're related to the Jesuits like Jones and all this stuff. So that's definitely what's going on. Are we on the verge of the science fiction holy grail? Researchers one step closer to finding out why matter dominates the universe. Researchers are today one step closer to understanding why matter and not antimatter dominates the universe. An international team working in Japan has discovered that 3 of the most basic particles in existence can flip into each other. The research is only preliminary as it was halted by the Fukushima earthquake, but if proved correct, it will be a breakthrough in understanding the cosmos. In particular, it will address the question of why the universe is made up of matter and not antimatter. Equal amounts of both were unleashed by the Big Bang. The experiment by the team at the huge T2K particle detector in Japan involves neutrinos, the most basic parts of matter. They come in 3 flavors: electron neutrinos, tau neutrinos, and muon neutrinos, but they are very hard to find because they barely interact with other particles, earning them the nickname ghost particles. Well, what if they're not ghost particles? What if they're spirit particles? See, they don't think like that. They're not allowed to think like that, because if scientists thought like that, then scientists would have the ability to tell mankind the real truth. You see? Ghost particles. What a bunch of cocksuckers. Previous experiments had observed 2 kinds of flipping, where the neutrinos suddenly turn to each other, but now T2K has identified a 3rd. This involved a muon neutrino turning into an electron neutrino, the first time such a transformation has been recorded. It raises the possibility that neutrinos, matter in general, have different qualities to them than antineutrinos. Such differences may one day help explain why it is matter which makes up our universe and not antimatter. Professor David Warwick of Imperial College London, who was involved in T2K, told BBC News it's a step on the road. Again, why are they looking for this? Why does it seem that everything is being focused on this? We got people starving to death. We have people who are in debt and going bankrupt, but they're pumping billions and trillions of dollars into finding the God particle and into finding, what makes matter exist. That's because they want to figure out how to manipulate it. This is coming from the very top. This is coming from the people who were seeded, the bloodlines that rule the world. Those people who have maintained their bloodlines through these interbreeding programs, that's one of the biggest elements. And if you haven't been into this too long and you haven't been researching stuff and you haven't been awake too long, this is probably going to go right over your head and you may not get it. But maybe hold it back in your memory banks, and after you've done more research, maybe a few years from now, this will make sense to you. But the bloodlines, their whole thing, why they've maintained these bloodlines and interbred, is because they consider themselves to be, that's what royal blood is, are the pure bloodlines that go back to these original Anunnaki bloodlines, and the ones that have maintained that have what they call the divine right to rule. So what they are trying to do with all technology and all breakthroughs in technology is to be able to become gods themselves, to be on equal footing and on equal par with the creators. That's what they want, to rule over us. They want to rise up and become as powerful as the gods, so the gods will come back down and say, oh, you are worthy to serve with us. That's a big part of the whole agenda. Everything else, the banks and everything, it's just little bit feeder things that feed that much greater, larger agenda. Let's see what else we have here tonight. Magic mushrooms could have medical benefits. Well, no shit, Sherlock. How long have medicine men and everything else known that? Researchers at Johns Hopkins University of Medicine have been studying the effects of psilocybin, a chemical found in some psychedelic mushrooms. It's credited with inducing transcendental states. Now they say that they've zeroed in on the perfect dosage level to produce transformative, mystical, and spiritual experiences that offer long-lasting, changing benefits. Yeah, I mean, they're... Only an ignorant society that has an agenda to keep its people in total ignorance about the truth about themselves and their planet and everything else would make a plant that is here for our benefit illegal for us to own and use. And mushrooms and all that stuff, they're just one of the many things that are put on this earth for us to use for our benefit. And we have the intelligentsia that wants to keep us dumbed down and spiritually enslaved, that won't let us have access to our greatest gifts. And that's really what the information they withhold from us is all about. It's our birthright. It belongs to us. That's the thing. That's the thing. Every single one of you out there needs to understand about this information. That's what should give you more of a vested interest in all of this if you don't already have one. That's why every single person on this planet has no right to stick their head in the sand like an ostrich and say, you know what, I know it's there, I'm aware of it, but I just choose not to even look at it or worry about it or think about it. Wrong. Wrong. That is a sin to do that. I don't believe in all what they tell us is, the common thing of a sin and what they tell us in the Bible and all that, blah, 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 that. I'm talking about that kind of horse shit. I'm talking about a real, honest to goodness sin. And there is no greater sin than knowing that something that is your birthright is being withheld from you and just turning your head the other way and not worrying about it. Every single one of us are being lied to and not be given the whole truth, which would enable us to have our moment of existence in this life the way we are supposed to have it. So we're forced to just constantly reincarnate back down here in the misery, in the cycle of misery, and do it all over again. That is, again, that's one of the other bigger things, just like I mentioned earlier with them wanting to become gods. The other big thing about that isn't how they're doing that. So what does that tell you about the information they're withholding from us? I'll tell you what it tells me. Every single one of us has the power to become a god. Because we came and were made and created by gods. And that's what I believe Enki wanted to tell us. I believe that's what Ea wanted us to know. That's what all these different incarnations, Jesus, Quetzalcoatl, Buddha, Onas, blah, blah, blah. Different incarnations. One incarnation, he's Jesus. One incarnation, he's Buddha. One incarnation, he's Viracocha. But in every instance, he's coming back telling us, hey, look, you're the same as me and I'm the same as you. And we're all the Son of God and we can all be God because we all are God. We all come from that, from the one consciousness, from the source. That's what they don't want us to know. That's the big secret of the elite. That's what keeps this whole thing going. Didn't you know? Oh, you didn't? Well, there you go. That's what keeps this whole thing going. If we all knew the potential that each and every one of us has, there would never be a hierarchy, a power structure, a government, or anything else ever again. There would never be anyone above anybody else because we all would be true equals. And you cannot rule over anyone if everyone knows that, can you? But that's it. That's what's keeping this whole thing in place. Well, I'm done with the news tonight. Let's take a break and come back. And when we come back from the break, we are going to begin reading tonight from the Lost Book of Enki. So that should be a very good read. But anyway, stay with us, folks. This is the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. All right, back here with you on the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us tonight here. And in our last segment tonight of the show, we're going to begin a new reading. And this is the Lost Book of Enki by Zecharia Sitchin. So, again, want to make it clear, not endorsing or I don't even like Sitchin. I don't agree with him. I think he's a gatekeeper, he's a CIA asset. But this is stuff that is coming from the Sumerian seals and tablets, and so let's put it out there in the court of public opinion and see we'll decide for ourselves what's crap and what's not. And I think we'll all gain something from it. So just want to make that clear. Everybody thinks just because I read something on here, I'm automatically endorsing it or I believe in it or anything else. And it doesn't always mean that, But it's boring to me to always just, because just look at things that just fit my paradigm or fit my belief system or anything. That's dangerous. It seems dangerous to me that if there are people out there, and I know there are a lot of people out there who do think that way, and that's dangerous. You've got to be looking at the stuff you don't agree with so you can see, you glean information from that. So there you go. And so we'll be reading tonight the Lost Book of Enki here. This is the introduction. Some 445,000 years ago, astronauts from another planet came to Earth in search of gold. Splashing down in one of the Earth's seas, they waded ashore and established Eridu, home in the faraway. In time, the initial settlement expanded to a full-fledged mission Earth with a mission control center, a spaceport, mining operations, and even a way station on Mars. And there's lots of evidence of that. I mean, it absolutely is to me no coincidence. And anybody wants to make you believe it's a coincidence is a liar. That the original area of what is now Iraq, formerly Mesopotamia, was called before it was Mesopotamia, was called Cydonia. Sorry, I had a brain fart there for a minute. And the area also on Mars where the face was found is also on Cydonia. Coincidentally enough, both places are also located on the 33rd degree parallel. Yes, you heard me right. Ancient Mesopotamia is also Iraq, also located on the 33rd degree parallel, formerly known as Cydonia. Cydonia on Mars, where the face is located, is also on the 33rd degree parallel. As we talked about earlier with 33, no coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. So, I got to say the idea of the way station thing, definitely a lot of evidence to support that. Short of manpower, the astronauts employed genetic engineering to fashion primitive workers, Homo sapiens. It says Horno sapiens, so maybe that's a misprint. Homo sapiens. The deluge that catastrophically swept over the Earth required a fresh start. The astronauts became gods, granting mankind civilization, teaching it to worship. Then, about 4,000 years ago, all that had been achieved unraveled in a nuclear calamity brought about by the visitors to Earth in the course of their own rivalries and wars. Exactly what I talked about earlier. So that's coincidental yet again. This is going to be a good read, I think. I can already tell. We're starting to see synchronicities already. Exactly what I described earlier with the Bhagavad Gita. The pre-flood ash. What had taken place on Earth, and especially the events since human history began, has been culled by Zecharia Sitchin in his The Earth Chronicle series from the Bible, clay tablets, ancient myths, and archaeological discoveries. But what had preceded the events on Earth, what had taken place on the astronauts' own planet Nibiru that caused the space journeys, the need for gold, the creation of man, what emotions, rivalries, beliefs, morals, or lack thereof motivated the principal players in the celestial and space sagas? What were the relationships that caused mounting tensions on Nibiru and on Earth? What tensions arose between old and young, between those who had come from Nibiru and those who were born on Earth? And to what extent was what happened determined by destiny, a destiny whose record of past events holds the key to the future? Would it not be auspicious were one of the key players an eyewitness and one who could distinguish between fate and destiny to record for posterity the how and where and when and why of it all, the first things and perhaps the last things? But that is precisely what some of them did do, and foremost among them was the very leader who had commanded the first group of astronauts. scholars and theologians alike now recognize that the biblical tales of creation, of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, the Deluge, the Tower of Babel, were based on texts written down millennia earlier in Mesopotamia. Now, keep in mind as well, folks, this is, again, why in 2003 in the invasion of Iraq, they went into the Iraq National Museum, stole all the artifacts pertaining to ancient Mesopotamia, the little reptilian alien statues, all the cylinder seals, all that stuff. This is why. And so the Adam and Eve, Tales of Creation, the Garden of Eden, the Deluge, the Tower of Babel, were based on texts written down millennia earlier in Mesopotamia, especially by the Sumerians. And they, in turn, clearly stated that they obtained their knowledge of past events, many from a time before civilizations began, even before mankind came to be, from the writings of the Anunnaki. From those from heaven to earth came the gods of antiquity. As a result of a century and a half of archaeological discoveries in the ruins of the ancient civilizations, especially in the Near East, a great number of such early texts have been found. The finds have also revealed the extent of missing texts, so-called lost books, which are either mentioned in discovered texts or are inferred from such texts, or that are known to have existed because they were cataloged in royal or temple libraries. Sometimes the secrets of the gods were partly revealed in epic tales, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh. That disclosed the debate among the gods that led to the decision to let mankind perish in the deluge, or in a text titled Atra Hasis, which recalled the mutiny of the Anunnaki who had toiled in the gold mines that led to the creation of primitive worker earthlings. From time to time, the leaders of the astronauts themselves authored compositions, sometimes dictating the text to a chosen scribe, as the text called the Era Epos, in which one of the two gods who had caused the nuclear calamity sought to shift the blame to his adversary. Sometime the god acted as his own scribe, as is the case regarding the Book of the Secrets of Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge, which the god had secreted in a subterranean chamber. When the Lord God Yahweh, according to the Bible, granted the commandments to his chosen people, he first inscribed in his own hand 2 stone tablets that he gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. When Moses threw down and broke that first set of tablets in response to the golden calf incident, the replacement set was written by Moses on the tablets on both their sides when he stayed on the mount 40 days and 40 nights, recording the dictated words of the Lord. Were it not for a tale recorded on papyrus from the time of the Egyptian king Khufu concerning the Book of the Secrets of Thoth, the existence of that book would have not become known. Were it not for the biblical narratives in Exodus and Deuteronomy, we would have never known about the divine tablets and their contents. All would have become part of the enigmatic body of lost books whose very existence would have never come to light. No less painful is the fact that in some instances we do know that certain texts had existed, but are in the dark regarding their contents. Such is the case regarding the Book of the Wars of Yahweh and the Book of Dasher, or also known as the Book of Righteousness, which are specifically mentioned in the Bible. In at least 2 instances, the existence of olden books, earlier texts known to the biblical narrator, can be inferred, chapter 5 of Genesis, with the statement, "This is the book of the Toldoth of Adam." The term Toldoth being usually translated as generations, but more accurately meaning historic or genealogical record. Yeah, the book of, the Adamic, the record of Adam, or the genealogy of Isis. That's what it really means. That's what the book of Genesis means. So that's interesting that chapter 5 of Genesis begins with the statement, "This is the book of Toldoth of Adam," of the Toldoth of Adam, meaning the genealogical record of Adam. Well, Adam supposedly is is what we know in Egyptian mythology as you have Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And that's the Trinity. That's where what we know as the Holy Trinity comes from. It's just amazing stuff. Wow. So that's exactly what the book of Genesis means, yeah. So this is the book of Toldoth of Adam. The term Toldoth being usually translated as generations or meaning historic or genealogical record. The other instances in chapter 6 of Genesis where the events concerning Noah and the deluge begin with the words, "These are the Toldoth of Noah." Indeed, partial versions of a book that became known as the Book of Adam and Eve have survived over the millennia in Armenian, Slovak, Syriac, and Ethiopic languages. And the Book of Enoch, one of the so-called apocryphal books that were not included in the canonized Bible. They contain segments that are considered by scholars to be fragments of a much earlier Book of Noah. An oft-quoted example of the extent of lost books is that of the famed Library of Alexandria in Egypt. Established by the general Ptolemy after Alexander's death in 323 BC, it was said to have contained more than 500,000 volumes of books inscribed on a variety of materials, clay, stone, papyrus, parchment, etc. That great library, where scholars gathered to study the accumulated knowledge, was burnt down and destroyed in the wars that extended from 48 BC to the Arab conquest in AD 642. What has remained of its treasures is a translation of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible into Greek and fragments retained in the writings of some of the library's resident scholars. It is only thus that we know that the second King Ptolemy commissioned, circa 270 BC, an Egyptian priest whom the Greeks called Mantho, to compile the history and prehistory of Egypt. At first, Mantho wrote, only the gods reigned there, then demigods, and finally, circa 3100 BC, pharaonic dynasties began. The divine reigns, he wrote, began 10,000 years before the flood and continued for thousands of years thereafter, the latter period having witnessed battles and wars among the gods. In the Asiatic domains of Alexander, where reign fell into the hands of the general, Seleucus and his successors, a similar effort to provide the Greek servants with a record of past events took place. A priest of the Babylonian god Marduk, Berosus, with access to libraries of clay tablets whose core was the temple library of Haran, now in southeastern Turkey, wrote down in 3 volumes a history of gods and men that began 432,000 years before the deluge, when the gods came to earth from the heavens, listing by name and reign durations the first 10 commanders. Berosus reported that the first leader, dressed as a fish, waded ashore from the sea. He was the one who gave mankind civilization, and his name, rendered in Greek, was Cams. Dovetailing in many details, both priests thus rendered accounts of gods of heaven who had come to earth of a time when gods alone reigned on earth, and of the catastrophic deluge. In the fragmentary bits and pieces retained in other contemporary writings from the 3 volumes, Berosus specifically reported the existence of writings from before the great flood stone tablets that were hidden for safekeeping in an ancient city called Sippar, one of the original cities established by the ancient gods. Though Sippar, as were other pre-diluvial cities of the gods, was overwhelmed and obliterated by the deluge, a reference to the pre-diluvial writing surfaced in the annals of the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal when archaeologists in the 19th century found the ancient Assyrian capital, Nineveh, until then known only from the Old Testament. They discovered in the ruins of a palace with the remains of some 25,000 inscribed clay tablets. An assiduous collector of olden texts, Ashurbanipal boasted in his annals, "The god of scribes has bestowed upon me the gift of the knowledge of his arts. I have been initiated into the secrets of writing. I can even read the intricate tablets in Sumerian. I understand the enigmatic words in the stone carvings from the days before the flood." It is now known that the Sumerian or Sumerian civilization had blossomed in what is now Iraq almost a millennium before the beginning of the Pharaonic age in Egypt, both to be followed later by the civilization of the Indus Valley in the Indian subcontinent. It is now also known that the Sumerians were the first to write down the annals of tales of gods and men, from which all other peoples, including the Hebrews, obtained the tales of creation of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, the deluge, the Tower of Babel, and of the wars and loves of the gods, as reflected in the writings and recollections of the Greeks Hittites, Canaanites, Persians, and Indo-Europeans. As all these olden writings attest, their sources were even earlier texts, some found, but many lost. The volume of such early writings is staggering. Not thousands, but tens of thousands of clay tablets have been discovered in the ruins of the ancient Near East. Many deal with or record aspects of daily life, such as trade or workers' wages and nuptial contracts. Others found mostly in palace libraries constitute royal annals. Still others discovered in the ruins of temple libraries or of scribal schools constitute a group of canonized texts. A secret literature that were written down in the Sumerian language and then translated to Akkadian, the first Semitic language, and then other ancient languages. And even in those early writings going back almost 6,000 years, references are made to lost books, texts inscribed on stone tablets. Among the incredible, to say fortunate, does not fully convey the miracle finds in the ruins of ancient cities and their libraries. There are clay prisms inscribed with the very information about the 10 pre-Diluvian rulers and their 432,000 years total reign to which Berosus had referred, known as the Sumerian king lists. Let me get a drink here. Known as the Sumerian king lists and on display in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England, their several versions leave no doubt that their Sumerian compilers had access to some earlier common or canonized textual material. Coupled with other equally early texts discovered in various states of preservation, they strongly suggest that the original recorder of the arrival, as well as of the preceding events and certainly of the following events, had to be one of those leaders, a key participant and an eyewitness, one who had been an eyewitness to all those events. Indeed, a key participant in them was the leader who had splashed down with the first group of astronauts. At that time, his epitaph name was Ea, E-A, he whose home is water. He experienced the disappointment of having command of Earth mission given to his half-brother and rival Enlil, Lord of the Command. A humiliation little mitigated by granting him the title Enki, Lord of Earth. Relegated away from the cities of the gods and their spaceport in the Eden, E-D-I-N, which, of course, Eden, to supervise the mining of gold in the Abzu, which was in southeastern Africa. It was Ea Enki, a great scientist, who came across the hominids who inhabited those parts. And so when the Anunnaki toiling in the gold mines mutinied and said, "No more," it was he who realized that the needed manpower could be obtained by jumping the gun on evolution through genetic engineering, and thus did the Adam, literally, he of the earth, earthling, came into being. As a hybrid, the Adam could not procreate. The events echoed in the biblical tale of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden record the second genetic manipulation by Enki that added the extra chromosomal genes needed for sexual procreation. And when mankind proliferating did not turn out the way it had been envisaged, it was he, Enki, who defied his brother Enlil's plans to let mankind perish in the deluge. The events whose hero has been called Noah in the Bible and Zusudra in the earlier original Sumerian text. The firstborn son of Anu, Nibiru's ruler Ea Enki, was well versed in his planets and its inhabitants' past. And this is where I start to already have problems with this. I'm not convinced that I don't believe 100% what they tell us. You know, the Anunnaki came from Nibiru and all that. I don't believe that. I still think that's a red herring. But that's what you always see Sitchin referring to. And I still just don't. The archaeological stuff doesn't point in that direction. It points more in the direction of Sirius or Cygnus or Polaris. I mean, it just doesn't point in the direction of some planet that we have. We may or may not have ever even really identified. We have hard evidence that points archaeological things like the pyramids and Göbekli Tepe, and I mean, you got all these ancient megalithic sites all around the world lined up to stars, to certain systems. And then you see things like the Freemasons being obsessed with Sirius and the whole star systems there, and then the Dogon. And I mean, I just have a hard time believing that the Anunnaki came. They just don't seem to have come from within our own solar system. I have a hard time believing that. An accomplished scientist, he bequeathed his most important aspects of advanced knowledge of the Anunnaki, especially to his two sons, Marduk and Ningishzida, who as Egyptian gods were known there as Ra and Thoth, respectively. But he also was instrumental in sharing with mankind certain aspects of such advanced knowledge by teaching to selected individuals the secrets of the gods. In at least 2 instances, such initiates wrote down, as they were instructed to do, those divine teachings as mankind's heritage. Right, that's what I was referencing earlier in the show, our birthright. That's what they were instructing him to write down. One called Adapa, and probably a son of Enki by a human female, is known to have written a book titled Writings Regarding Time, one of the earliest lost books. The other, called the Edmund Durang, let me get this right, the Enmed Uranki, E-N-M-E-D-U-R-A-N-K-I, the Enmed Uranki, another one of the books that was supposed to be our birthright, was in all probability the prototype of the biblical Enoch, the one who was taken up into heaven after he had entrusted his sons the book of divine secrets, and of which a version has possibly survived in the extra-biblical book of Enoch. Though the firstborn of Anu, he was not destined to be his father's successor on the throne of Nibiru. Complex rules of succession, which reflected the convoluted history of their planet, gave the privilege to Enki's half-brother Enlil. And Enlil is also that's where the whole thing of, Jesus and the devil comes from, that whole dynamic. That's in Enlil and Enki. That's what the two twin towers represented, Enlil and Enki. It's a pretty good signal of bringing those things down, bringing down Enlil and Enki, that, these custodial rulers definitely, you want to get down to who really pulled off 9/11, there you go. In the effort to resolve the bitter conflict, both Enki and Enlil ended up on a mission to an alien planet Earth, whose goal was needed to create a shield for preserving Nibiru's dwindling atmosphere. It was against that background, made even more complex by the presence on Earth of their half-sister Ninarshag, the chief medical officer of the Anunnaki, that Enki decided to defy Enlil's plans to have mankind perish in the deluge. The conflict carried on between the two half-brother sons, even among their grandchildren. The fact that all of them, and especially those born on Earth, faced the loss of longevity that Nibiru's extended orbital period provided, added personal agonies and sharpened ambitions. It all came to a climax in the last century of the 3rd millennium BC, when Marduk, Enki's firstborn by his official spouse, claimed that he and not Enlil's firstborn son, Ninurta, should inherit the Earth. The bitter conflict that included a series of wars led in the end to the use of nuclear weapons. And that's what I was mentioning earlier when the listener had asked me about, the sun symbols. And that's why I said I think it has something to do with nuclear weapons and extraterrestrials, because, Polaris, the long-range nuclear missiles launched by submarines, and also the, just the whole thing with how they use nuclear weapons on Earth. And that being the North Star and all those sun symbols. Again, when you see those depictions of the sun in Egyptian things or anything else, it's not, that doesn't always mean our sun or our star. It could mean someone else's a star somewhere else. That's what people never think. They never teach you that in school. People need to know that information. It's very key. It changes everything once you know that. The bitter conflict that included a series of wars led to the end of the use of nuclear weapons. The ensuing, though unintended, result was the demise of the Sumerian civilization. And that's true, because that's one of the things that they will admit to, actually, in a high school textbook. The Sumerians disappeared. Gone, poof, in the wind, in the dust. Some people think they got raptured out by aliens, but I think probably the more, I think what I believe is that they were vaporized by the use of these extraterrestrial nuclear weapons. And again, the reason I believe that is because, as we talked about earlier, the pre-flood ash. The initiation of chosen individuals into the secrets of the gods had marked the beginning of priesthood, the lineages of mediators between the gods and the people, the transmitters of the divine words to the mortal earthlings. Oracles' interpretations of divine utterances were commingled with the observation of the heavens for omens. And as mankind was increasingly drawn to take sides in the godly conflicts, prophecy began to play a role. Indeed, the term to denote such spokesmen of the gods who proclaimed what was to come, Nabi, was the epitaph for Marduk's firstborn son, Nabu, who had tried on behalf of his exiled father to convince mankind that the heavenly signs bespoke the coming supremacy of Marduk. These developments sharpen the realization that one must distinguish between fate and destiny. The proclamations of Enlil, sometimes even of Anu, that used to be unquestioned were now subjected to the scrutiny of the difference between Nam and destiny, like the planetary orbits, whose course had been determined and was unchangeable, and Namtar, literally, a destiny that could be bent, broken, changed, which was fate. Reviewing and recalling the sequence of events and the apparent parallelism between what had happened on Nibiru and what took place on Earth, Enki and Enlil began to ponder philosophically what indeed was destined and could not have been avoided, and what was just fated as a consequence of right or wrong decisions and free choice. The latter could not be predicted. The former could be foreseen, especially if all, as the planetary orbits, was cyclical. If what was shall be again, if the first things shall also be the last things. The climactic event of the nuclear desolation sharpened soul-searching among the leaders of the Anunnaki and raised the need to explain to the devastated human masses why it came to pass this way. Was it destined, or was it just the result of an Anunnaki-made fate? Was anyone responsible? Is there someone accountable? In the councils of the Anunnaki on the eve of the calamity, it was Enki who stood alone in opposition to the use of the forbidden weapon. It was thus important for Enki to explain to the suffering remnants that the turning point in the saga of extraterrestrials, who had meant well but ended as destroyers, had come to pass, and who but Ea Enki, who was the first to come and be an eyewitness to it all, was the most qualified to tell the people so that the future could be divined, and what was the best way to tell that it was all a first-person report by Enki himself. This is kind of in broken English. I apologize. I know how to read, but and the best way to tell it was all as a first-person report by Enki himself. It's just, I don't think Zachariah Sitchin spoke good English. I'm reading it exactly as it is on the page, and some of this stuff I'm having to like improvise because it's just bad English. I hate that. It's like every time I find a book I want to read, it's written by a fucking first grader. Sucks. That he had recorded his autobiography is certain, for a long text stretching over at least 12 tablets was discovered in a library. Nippur quotes Urki as saying, "When I approached the earth, there was much flooding. When I neared its green meadows, heaps and mounds were piled up at my command. In a pure place, I built my house. An appropriate name I gave it." The long text continues to describe how Ea, or Enki, then assigned tasks to his lieutenants, putting their mission to Earth in motion. Numerous other texts that relate varied aspects of Enki's role in the ensuing developments serve to complete Enki's tale. They include a cosmogony, an epic of creation at whose core lay Enki's own text, which scholars call the Eridu Genesis. They include detailed descriptions of the fashioning of the atom. They describe how other Anunnaki, male and female, came to Enki in his city Eridu to obtain from him a kind of data disk, that encoded all aspects of civilization, and they include texts of Enki's private life and personal problems, such as the tale of his attempts to attain a son by his half-sister Ninarshak, his promiscuous affair with both goddesses and the daughters of man, and the unforeseen consequences thereof. The Atra Hasis text throws light on Anu's efforts to prevent a flare-up of the Enki-Enlil rivalries by dividing Earth's domains between them. And texts recording the events preceding the deluge render almost verbatim the debates in the Council of the Gods about the fate of mankind and Enki's subterfuge known as the Tale of Noah and the Ark tale known from the Bible, until one of its original Mesopotamian versions was found in the tablets in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Sumerian and Akkadian clay tablets, Babylonian and Assyrian temple libraries, Egyptian, Hittite, and Canaanite myths, and the biblical narratives are the main body of written down memories of the affairs of gods and men. For the first time ever, this dispersed and fragmented material has been assembled and used by Zecharia Sitchin to recreate the eyewitness accounts of Enki, the autobiographical memoirs and insightful prophecies of an extraterrestrial god. Presented as a text dictated by Enki to a chosen scribe, a book of witnessing to the unsealed, to be unsealed at an appropriate time. It brings to mind Yahweh's instructions to the prophet Isaiah. Now come, write it on a sealed tablet as a book and engrave it. Let it be the witnessing until the last day, a testimony for all time. In dealing with the past, Enki himself perceived the future. The notion that the Anunnaki, exercising free will, were masters of their own fates, as well as the fate of mankind, gave way in the end to a realization that it was destiny, that when all was said and done, determined the course of events, and therefore, as the Hebrew prophets had recognized, the first things shall be the last things. The record of events dictated by Enki thus becomes a foundation for prophecy, and the past becomes the future. So that's the end there of the first part. This is, I'm going to try, I've got a hard copy of this. I just pulled up a PDF. Maybe this is a crappy PDF. I don't know. I'll find a better copy before next show. But, yeah, I mean, looks like it's good stuff so far here. And, you know, again, don't agree with all the stuff about Nibiru, blah, 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 whatever. But still, nonetheless, I think it's going to be very well worth the read, and definitely can't wait to get into that. Got an email here that says, hey, Josh, I'd like to know what you think about the Kabbalistic writings of Aleister Crowley. Was he just misleading, or was he just omitting? Crowley was a trickster. That was part of his whole shtick, his whole persona, his whole thing. You couldn't tell when the guy was telling you the truth or whether he was, pulling your leg. And so one of the things you find, and which is exactly the reason why I can't answer your question, because was he just misleading? Was he just omitting? Well, or was he doing both? That's a question you're going to have to find on your own, my friend. Because I'll tell you what I found that the more that you find out about those things on your own, the different stuff that, like Kabbalism and sacred magic and sex magic and, any of the ancient, arts, and then you go back and read Crowley, you start to get a better idea of what's what and what's not. I'll tell you this. I think the guy was way more powerful and had way more power and really, really had a lot more control over a lot more things than what the history books tell us. That's really what I can tell you. That's for sure. They try to downplay it a lot, but understand he was the head of the Illuminati as well at one point. I think after Giuseppe Mazzini, something like that. I think Giuseppe Mazzini passed it to him after Albert Pike had passed it to Giuseppe Mazzini. So, yeah, I think that's one thing that, that's a great question, but I think it's a question that, I think I'd be doing you an injustice by really answering fully. Also, I think it's a question you're going to find on your own. As you research more and you read more and you find out new things every day, that's going to change. What you believe today about something or what you understand today about, a specific issue we're talking about, it's going to change. No, it's not going to be the same a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. Or it shouldn't be. If it is, then, you're not really challenging yourself to have new beliefs and have new info. I think that as you continue to research and you continue to read more, you find the things that you thought you believed before, thought it held as, that sort of changes and is constantly in flux because you're constantly learning new things. So definitely wouldn't want to see that taken away from you. That's our show tonight. Want to thank everybody for tuning in and being with us. We do need your support right now more than ever. We have to pay the stream bill. That's coming up due this weekend, I think, as well. So chip and banner, donate button, whatever you want to use, folks. But it's been kind of light on support this week. So we need whatever support we can get in right now. My name is Josh Reeves. I love each and every one of you. We'll see you next time for the broadcast. You guys have a great night. Take care.